welcome to World of Learning. I hope you're all having a wonderful morning already, even though it's only 10:15, but it depends what time you got up this morning, I suppose. Some of you might have been out there jogging. Well done if you have. Or walking the dog or going out to see if the cat's still outside. So today we're looking at I'm Not Okay, You Okay. My name's Tracy and I'm from a company called Pearl Catchers. You might have seen us before on quite a lot of the World of Learning exhibitions. So welcome back to those that I can see, and I recognise some of your faces. So thank you for coming to join us again today. I know that we're online. How exciting, instead of just being face to face. We do miss being face to face. I don't know about yourself, but we want to try and make this as interactive as possible for you, so you don't just feel like you're sitting there listening to me waffling on for the next half an hour. So I will be asking you to do things virtually. Hope that's okay. But I want to try and make sure that you're as comfortable as possible, because this particular subject can evoke different feelings as we talk about mental health and well-being. So please feel free, those of you that haven't got your cameras on, to take yourself off the camera if you don't want to be seen. I absolutely understand that. When you want to speak, if you want to ask me any questions or anything, please use the chat function. Those of you that already have used it, I can see that some people are asking about sound. Some people can hear me and some people can't. Ooh. Wonder if anyone can have a look into that for me from the IT perspectives. Otherwise, this is going to be a very short, sharp session with me just going like that. Thanks, Luce.
I can hear you too.
Thank you, Lisa.
I can hear you.
I can hear
Thank you. Oh, yay, good. Woo. Okay, that's all right. We're on the train. If you can't hear us, if you can just let IT know of World of Learning and see whether they might be able to see something. It may be your system, but I'm normally quite loud, which is normally quite a shock if people can't hear me, to be honest. So as I say, we're going to look at mental health and well-being. It's a whistle-stop tour. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I do want to get you into talking about things if possible. Unfortunately, with this Zoom, we don't have the lovely breakout rooms. Those of you who have been using Zoom, we don't have the lovely breakout rooms for this session, unfortunately. So I will be using the whiteboard and the chat function for those that you have used it. That's great. If you haven't, when we get to that section and you want to ask how to use it and where to find it, we can go through it then. So, as I put in my brief, we all know how important it is to be aware of mental health and well-being, but do we really know how to deal with it and talk about it? So, I really wanted to ask what positions you're all in, those of you that have just joined us. So are you HR? Are you a trainer? Are you from a business perspective? If you wouldn't mind just typing in the chat function what your title is, so I can get a real awareness of how many trainers we may have or how many HR. Thank you. I can see that a few people have already put in that they're trainers, which is fantastic. Just so I get a rough idea of what we've got. Lovely. Fabulous. A lot of trainers there. Got a nurse in there as well. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the call today. You're extremely busy, I'm sure. Lovely. Okay. Like some tips on own well-being. Okay. Well, let's see what I can do for you in the next next 20 minutes or so. So I wanted to ask how many of you ask the question to people, are you okay? Because when we ask people, are you okay? Our natural reaction is, yeah, I'm fine. You okay? And sometimes when we say that we're not really looking into what does that mean? What is that saying to us? And how can we really find out what's behind what's happening to somebody? So, for example, I'm quite larger than life, as you may have gathered, but there are times where I might be quite quiet and I might be quite reserved for some people. So they might be looking at me going, oh, Tracy's a bit quiet today. What's wrong with her? You okay? And I'll go, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm all right. But am I really? So there could be that underlying thing behind it to go, actually, I do really want you to ask me again. And I really do want you to find out what's behind that message. So you can see it in people's body language and their eyes and other things. But when it's over a video, it can sometimes be quite difficult, or over the telephone, because you're listening to their tone of voice and you're not quite sure if someone's going high pitch, do they really mean that? So with the things that have been happening this year, with that horrible C word, I'm going to say it very quickly, COVID, just in case you think I'm thinking of other different C words. But with the lockdowns, the isolations, missing out with time with family and friends, it's been quite difficult for a lot of people, and mental health and well-being has shot up no end this year for those reasons, but you could have a lot of other reasons. So thinking about the employees that you have within your companies, how they're dealing with things, what have you put in place? So I'm going to come back to that question in a minute. But what I just want to ask you is, what do you see in this picture? If you just want to pop that in the chat, what do you see on the screen right now, apart from me? Rabbit, duck, bird and rabbit, duck with a long beak, lovely. Okay. What does it tell you? When we look at that picture, what's it telling you? If you want to come off mute and speak to me, I have no problem with that. But what does that tell you?
Everyone sees things differently.
Everybody sees things differently. Yeah, absolutely. And how everyone has different perspectives. I can see what you're writing in the chat function, which is fantastic. Thank you. And how can we deal with that? There's no right or wrong. I can see someone's put there. Thank you, Lauren. Different perspectives of the same image. Yeah. Because we're not the same. And that's a great thing, personally. Every picture, every person tells a different story. No illness or disorder is the same. We may have the same labels, but it doesn't mean that we're the same person. So whether you have a particular mental health illness, or whether you have a disability, it's looking at the person rather than the illness. And sometimes that's really, really difficult when someone says, oh, hi, yes, I'm bipolar, or hi, yes, I have psychosis, or I have eating disorder. Our natural reactions are to then label you under that particular illness, which is what we need to try and get away from when someone is opening up to let us know that, which is really important. And Andrew says, take time to be curious. Absolutely. So what I'm going to get you to do now is I'm going to put up a whiteboard, and I'm going to ask you, what do you do within the business that you're in at the moment, whether you work for yourself or whether you work in a large company or a small company, if you wouldn't mind on the whiteboard writing down some of the well-being programs or mental health. What do you currently do in your business? So let me just get that whiteboard up. And now, if you've ever used Annotate, I think I've said that right, there should be on your taskbar, Annotate. Can everyone see that? If you can't, just pop that into the chat. But you should see that there is a text box that you can then type. Oh, I can see someone's drawing already. Brilliant. If you want to draw, I have no problem with drawing as well. So what do you currently do? Thank you, Chris. It's at the top in the view options. Thank you. So I can't see what you guys see. So what do you currently do in your business to support well-being and mental health? So we have mental health first aiders across the organisation. Fantastic. Promoting 5 ways of well-being. All had a mental health awareness course back in April. Lovely. Mental health first aiders. Lovely. Wellbeing strategies such as mindfulness activities, EOPs, yeah, mental health first aid, MA. Wellbeing newsletter, online mindfulness activities, manager conversation, brilliant. Desk yoga last week, fantastic. And there is that sort of thing when you're doing some of these things, it's how can we promote them to our employees. But there is one thing that I always find, especially with World of Learning or any other, if you're doing CIPD or any other exhibition, what about me? What's my well-being like? And I have to say, with what HR and trainers have gone through, especially over the last sort of 9 months, is huge. So we're all great at trying to think about what's great for our employees and how can I help and support them. But one of the biggest things that I would advocate to you is don't forget about yourself. So doing that desk yoga, daily check-ins, I can see other people have written on there, staff awareness training, mental health awareness, encourage allocated break times, fantastic. Online demand modules. It's easy to get swept away with online meetings. Oh gosh, isn't it? Yeah. Now we have meeting upon meeting. Now we have it online, meeting upon meeting. So again, it's trying to look at what's best for our employees, but also what's best for ourselves. And someone else I can see that's put stress there as well. Fantastic. So lots of things there that people are doing, which is great. External support group. Sorry, I didn't see that first off. My apologies, Lauren. But that's fantastic. Lots of different things. So one of the things that we've found, especially at Pearl Catchers, is I'm just going to pop back to my screen, is looking at what we can do, what we've been supporting people. And these are just some of the mental health and wellbeing programs that we've run for some of our clients, especially over the last 9 months. We've been running them a lot longer, but they have been really important. So mental health awareness, our mental health first aiders, we'll be rolling those out online next year, and then later on face-to-face. Yippee, can't wait to get back and see people. Lots of different wellbeing programs. Again, it's looking at what's best for you and the organizations, not just let's just pull that off the shelf, that's best for you. It's really fitting with the business. Mindfulness, laughter yoga. You may or may not be able to see what my mug says, but I don't know if it says it in the right way. It should say a day without laughter is a day wasted. Absolutely. Laughter is free. We can laugh whenever we choose to laugh, but we don't do it enough, especially in the current situation. Personal resilience. And another one that I've been championing for the last few years is understanding menopause, because this doesn't just affect women, this does affect men as well. And it's really understanding some of the signs and symptoms and how that really impacts everybody's mental health and well-being, especially if you don't know you're going through it. And the stigma is that, you normally are around, late 40s, coming up to 50 when the menopause starts. Menopause can start whenever, at whatever age. It can start at 15, unfortunately. So for me, it's really, really trying to be passionate about saying it to people. We don't know when it's going to start for people, but let's look at what the signs and symptoms are and try and see how we can support you best. It's not just about hot flushes. So that one's been quite a huge sort of session for people, some of our clients. Mental health awareness, which is what some of you have already mentioned. Managing your own well-being. So I noticed someone else had put on the chat earlier on is really looking at what some of the top tips. Well, what are the top tips for well-being? And those are more, unfortunately, we haven't got enough time to go through some of those top tips today. But if you're looking at some of the well-being programs, well, what could you have in there? Someone put desk yoga. That is fantastic to look at somebody's well-being. That might work for you and it might not. Again, with mindfulness, it might not. Managing people through change has been huge this year because of the transition from people working in an office or working in their particular locations, going out and about and seeing people, to then suddenly being online through lockdown. And then supporting the mental health and well-being of your team. So really trying to make sure we get exactly what people want. And those are just some of the few things that we do for some of our clients. We do a lot more bite-sized sessions, so 90 minutes, which I'm sure some of you do that already within your business. This is those of you that know us well. Every year we love our pearls of wisdom, so you may remember this from last year. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's looking at some of the different pearls that we have when we go through some of the mental health awareness programs that we deliver. So thinking about what support is there in your company, someone mentioned about support groups. So when we're looking at support groups, what do we have? Do you have some of these within your company? So looking at WhatsApp groups, again, some of our clients have started to do WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups or Messenger, employee assistant program. Someone mentioned that on the whiteboard. There's also Fit for Work, which is a website, which is employee assistance program as well. So those of you that don't have it, you might want to have a look at that website. Face-to-face support groups, which would be in-house, those of you that are allowed to go out and play. Some of us aren't allowed to go out and play still, just because we're still shielding, even though it might not be nationally recognised. It can be on an individual basis. And then on the right side of that part of the screen, you can see you've got Mind, you've got Samaritans, you've got Anxiety UK, there's ACAS, there's Men's Health Forum, because unfortunately, when we're talking about mental health and well-being, we don't always advocate about men's health. And for them to actually step up and say, I'm not okay, is huge. And once we recognize that, it's actually looking in a bit more detail. And I was on a course, or I've been on a course for the last sort of 7 weeks, which has been fantastic. And one of the speakers that we had was a gentleman, and he was incredibly open, and it was fantastic. And from his experience, he was saying that, you know, he loved his job, and pressures just got on top of him, and he wanted to complete suicide, was one of his biggest things. Thankfully, he didn't, which was amazing, but he took us through the whole journey of how he got to that position and how it affected his wife and how it affected his boys. Now they're grown up. 10 years later, his boys are now asking him that question. Why did you want to do that when you're in a loving, committed family? You've got a great job, this, that, and the other. And there were so many other circumstances that he just felt were out of his control. So it's really important when people come to us, whether they are male or female, at how we actually deal with that. So again, a lot of our sessions, when we're running these, we find that probably about 3/4 of them are women, because we want to know, we want to just deal with it and let's get on and deal with it. Whereas there have been a lot of men, which is fantastic, that have come on our sessions and have been very open and have then gone away and then asked the rest of their teams, which are male, to come on sessions, to be that open, which is really, really hard for them to do. And as men battling with showing vulnerability. Thank you, Andrew. Absolutely. But it is hard, and that's why we try and recognize some of the great websites that are out there. Or if you do go onto some of these websites like Men's Health Forum, they do have a helpline. So it's just looking at what's the next best thing. So how do we talk about mental health? So I've put a few things up here. Finding the right setting, which is really important. It might be the right setting for you, but is it the right setting for them? And that's key to starting anything off. When you're asking somebody, you okay? Yeah, I'm all right. Are you really? Yep. And if someone has that little bit of a pause, you know there's something else after it. So it's really looking into what's the area that you're going to be talking to them. Is it going to be via a Zoom call or Adobe or any of the other platforms, Teams that we use? Is it that you're just going to speak to them on the phone? Have they got lots of people around them? Are they out at the moment using their exercise time that they're allowed to go out, depending on what tier they're in? Are they actually at work, depending on what work you do? Being open and honest goes both ways. Make sure that they feel comfortable, that they can actually tell you these things and it won't go any further. So setting those ground rules for me is really, really important. Saying to people, you know, what we're saying here is just between you and me. However, if I think there is a risk to your health, as in you want to complete suicide, then I have a duty of care to highlight that to HR or further, depending on your policies at work. Think about the language and the tone of voice that you're using. Oh yeah, I felt like that last week when we talked about such and such. Oh God, wasn't it awful? Really listen without judgment, which is really hard because we just want to help people. Those of us that do this sort of thing, we just want to help. So you want to give advice, but what they might need is just for you to offload. So being really aware of that. Know that you don't have all the answers, because you won't. No one has all the answers. Not all the doctors or any of the psychiatrists or anything will be able to have all the answers to everything, unfortunately. And I can see Joe's just said, I find so few people are able to be in someone else's conversation. Absolutely. Yeah. Signpost them for some support. As I just mentioned there, for the outside supports that you've got out there with Mind and ACAS, which, you know, for those of you that use ACAS a lot, there's some great advice on there. But from a mental health side, Mind is fantastic. Think about where you are located around the UK or in Wales or Scotland, and look into some of those resources that you've got locally. Tap into those. It's really, really important to find out what you've got locally that can support people. And let them know that you will check in with them if you want to. You have to think about your own self-care. Those of you that are mental health first aiders, you understand that you can't go and support someone if you can't look after yourself first. So it's exactly the same as if we were going on a plane. Oh, wouldn't that be nice right now? But if you were going on a plane, you have to put your mask on first before you help somebody else out. It's the same when we're talking about self-care. You've got to think about your own self. How is your mindset at the moment? Are you in a difficult place where you can't help and support someone else? Now, that's very similar to how we talk about well-being to people. What's your well-being like? Because they're two different separate subjects. And again, you know, depending on what sessions you're running yourself, or if you get external providers like ourselves or anybody else, think about those two are very, very separate. So again, think about where you're going to be speaking to them, open and honest, everything that I've just said, but just a tweak there of giving information on resources. So thinking about self-help, like that desk yoga, which is fantastic. You can go onto YouTube, and I've forgotten the gentleman's name now. So whoever put that in there, if you can remember the desk yoga's name, I want to say Julian, but I can't remember. But you know, there are lots of things that are out there. You know, if you go onto YouTube, there's, I think it's called Happy Walk. So those of you that might not have a garden or be able to get out, you might be able to suggest this to other people that want to start to lose weight or think about their own well-being, that they can't get out and see things. If you go onto YouTube and put Happy Walk in there, there's a nice view that you can look like you're walking. You could just be standing there in your front room or wherever you got your telly and just walking. Nice natural walk, but feel like you're going out there somewhere. So yeah, I can see that Claire has put, in my experience, GPs was not a great source of help, actually unhelpful. Could be elaborate more on being very separate. Yeah, sometimes, you know, with the GPs have so much that they need to know and understand things. They may not know every single avenue when we're dealing with mental health. But when we're looking at well-being, what can we do to help ourselves? So I don't know if you can see it. I might have, let me just see if I can turn you. Look at this. I'll just show you it. I don't care. You can come into my room. Look, those of you who can see that, that was my my attempt of my mindfulness this year, of looking at Lego. Lego's really helped and supported me with self-help when I might have been very anxious about things that's going on in my personal life. It's expensive, I'll tell you that, but it's a great feeling. And with that in mind, I want to see whether we can just do something very quick, an individual exercise for you to get to do something just before we finish, because I'm conscious of time. But if you've got a piece of paper, if you've got just a couple of minutes to doodle, I can put the whiteboard back up if you want to doodle on there, but just get a plain piece of paper, start drawing on it, doodle, write something else down, make something out of the paper. This is my piece of paper, and I'm just going to quickly make something. Try and clear your mind while you're doing it. So it's like a little bit of mindfulness. But let's see what you can do. And this is less than, what, a minute? There's my little one. It was supposed to be a cat. I love that. Is that Chris that's doing that? Looking after yourself. Love it. We love a good doodle, don't we, Chris? And I can see Lisa said that you've done a lot of Lego as well. Brilliant. And what I would do is I would say to you, I would advocate you to have a look at where you go from today. Think about your own mindfulness, how you can take just a couple of minutes every day to do something that's right for you, because then you can go away and support other people. Those of you that know about Action for Happiness, they do an absolutely fantastic calendar every month for the kindness calendar. I would encourage you to start your own, but do it on a weekly basis. Start a different culture within your company or within your team. It's entirely up to you. Just think about how you can get 2021 to be so much better than 2020. Thank you very much for today and joining me. I hope that you've enjoyed it, that got something out of it. I tell you what, half an hour really does go very quickly on this, but it's just trying to think about what's best for you to help others and starting that conversation. If you want to come and talk to us at all, come and see us on our stand. There's lots of us there. We'd love to see you and love to talk to you. So thank you very much for your participation, and hopefully I'll see you in the flesh next year. Thank you very much.